Real life planning scenario, we're going to go through this one from an Ask an Advisor article. $1.1 million in cash, $800,000 in 401k, some pension, Social Security. Can I retire? We're going to break that down. That and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. I just love this stuff. You guys know, Dave Ramsey's probably the most well-known and popular financial spokesperson out there in the media. He's not a financial planner. He's not an advisor. So even if you love everything that he says, or you dislike some things, I'm in that camp. For the most part, love it, but there's a couple things that say, yeah, it doesn't really work in practical, real life scenarios. We do financial planning. We are financial planners, and just talk about it on YouTube here and try to help you, give you scenarios. So I love real life scenarios because been through them, and this one caught my attention. This article, Ask an Advisor with this scenario. Let's break it down. All right, I'm 60 years old, married, no mortgage, so debt-free, we have to assume. $1.1 million in cash. That's a lot of cash just sitting around. $880, almost $900 in 401k. Got two pensions, haven't started. Spouse has a pension as well. When we add all those up, it'll be $3,500 a month. Are they adopting? That's incredible. Social Security, if we draw it at 65, that's going to be another $5,000 a month combined. We've got medical and dental insurance covered through state government for as long as we live. Can I retire now, or should I work a few more years to build that pension? What a fantastic blueprint, right? A starting point. That's a great foundation. Not everyone has that foundation. There are some unique things with this scenario that most of us don't have. That much in cash, that much in pensions. That's pretty rare. So can you retire in that scenario? Well, let me tell you the perspective, and then I'm going to point out a few other peculiarities, things that really that I just have questions on, or that this individual needs to work through. So you guys know the lens through which to determine whether you can retire is a 5-factor retirement plan. So if you actually look at the article, the author, their advisor, then says, well, can you? It depends. Well, okay, depends on what, and they sort of break a few things down. But in this description, they give us a lot. They give us 3 of the 5 factors, but not all of them. And the 2 that are missing are crucial points that will really help provide the right answer. So those 5 factors are: what age do you want to be done? Well, it's telling us age 60, okay? And we can assume life expectancy. We'd want to talk through, well, longevity in the family, what's your health like, those sorts of things. But assuming retiring at age 60 and longevity, we've got that factor. Second, income sources, and we have that as well. And they've got fantastic income sources. That lot in pensions, $3,500 a month, and we know what Social Security is at 65. You can calculate then what it would be if you draw it at 62 as early as you can, at 67 or at 70. So good income. Guys, if you just run that math right there, $5,000 of Social Security income, $3,500 of pension income, and then based on their nest egg, so that's the 4th factor that they've actually, or the 3rd factor that they've actually told us is how much do you have saved up. You should, through a 3% withdrawal rule, more conservative than the 4%, another $5,000 a month, you should be able to safely withdraw off of a $2 million portfolio. Guys, that's, $13,000, over $13,000 a month of income. That is strong income. So those are the 3 factors we're given. Yes, it depends on some other factors, but what's missing? Spending. How much do you spend? Because any of us looking at that amount of income, I think, reasonably could say, oh yeah, I only spend 6. I only spend 8. If I've got that level of income, let's go. Yeah, this works. And then you're figuring out, well, Social Security doesn't start until X amount of time. If you started at 62, that means fewer years without that income, but you're locking in a lower rate. And there's some planning work you've got to do there. I'll pick that back up. But that's plenty of income. Great. But what if, with no value judgments, what if these folks say, yeah, we spend about $15,000 a month? I'm not judging. And if that's the case, then you might say, golly, I'm not sure. Maybe retiring right now doesn't quite work because you're spending above those levels above that mean. Does that make sense? So you've got to figure out, what are you spending? And as geeky as that sounds, we've got a couple of the variables, but we don't have all of them. One of the big expenses in retirement is health insurance, is medical insurance. And the fact that they could retire at 60 and not have to delay, or figure out what to do with health insurance until 65 when Medicare starts, that's huge. That's huge. So we know that cost. We can assume inflation. We can assume taxes on that. So it's really just, what's your overall lifestyle and what are some of the other things that you expect to spend money on in retirement? You might be thinking, well, they don't have a mortgage. They've got that much in cash. They probably aren't spending, more than that 13 grand. And I would have to assume that as well. But what if in retirement, that's when they want to let loose? What if that's when they want to buy a vacation property? What if that's when they want to travel around the world or do some extravagant things? We don't know. And I'm not making value judgments. You've got to know that before you can decide, can you retire at 60 or not? So that's spending, which, if you've heard me talk about this before, these 5 factors, they're all important and they're all interrelated. But if you had to pick a favorite, if you had to say there's one that's more important, it would be spending. Because I've seen people in financial situations like this retire with ease. I've seen people with more than this not be able to retire because they spend more than what their portfolio can really muster. So you got to figure out, how much are you spending? That's really going to help determine whether you can retire or not. And then that 5th factor you've got to be aware of as well, and that is your risk tolerance with your investments. To me, one of the things that stands out, and I'm sure to you as well, how do you have more just sitting in cash than you do in your 401k? How do you have more liquid cash, $1.1 million? That's not normal. So are these ultra conservative investors, and right now they're happy because they can lock in a 4% interest rate or something like that? But longer term, when inflation comes back and interest rates come back down, and if you say, well, we don't know if that's going to happen, we spend too much money, there's way too much debt for things to stay at a high interest rate, it's not going to work long term. We will have to get back to, we'll do whatever it takes to get back to low inflation and low interest rates. The economy can't survive any other way. So they might like it right now, but this might be a signal that we are not comfortable taking investment risk. And therefore, even that 3% withdrawal rate is not really sustainable, because yes, they can earn that much right now, but they can't earn that much out there in the future, or reliably out there in the future, if they're just going to be sitting in cash or in very, very low risk. So that's the other factor that you've got to consider before you can really know, okay, can this work? Can you retire at 60? But overall, without doing that planning and with missing those couple of details, I would assume that it can work. But here are the other things that stand out to me from a planning standpoint. I've already talked about why so much in cash and what's that mean. To me, it suggests that you've missed out on a lot of tax shelters. Why isn't some of that in a Roth? Well, there might be a valid reason for that. There might be, but I don't know. That's going to be, it's unlikely to me. So why not have some of this stuff, even if it's still really low risk? If you're not comfortable taking risk, at least earning interest in a tax-free account. So it looks as though they've underutilized their tax shelters and they've got more in cash. Now that you got to plan with that. But to me, that's one of the things that stands out. Second thing that stands out is, how are you going to draw these pensions? And I don't mean how, like literally what are you going to do, but when you start turning on your pensions, that's one of the biggest financial decisions you're going to make in your life. And if you draw it just on your life, then you're going to get the highest monthly payout. But if you die, if you slip on the banana peel the second month you retire, then that pension's gone. And all of a sudden, then your spouse, you've got to figure out, well, what's the plan? What's the financial plan for your spouse? Versus, nope, I'm going to draw my pension in a way that it will continue to pay out whether I'm living or I pass away. Well, if that's the case, then you get a reduction in the pension benefit that you receive. So is it $3,500 on your life only, but it would only be $2,500 if it's on joint lives? What's your life insurance structure? Could you use a strategy called Pension Max? What's your overall health situation? What's your health history for each of you? That's a big planning point. Again, one of the biggest financial decisions you're going to make in your life is how you're going to draw these pensions. You've got to plan through that, not just say, well, that checks a box, $3,500 a month, automatic. No, there's lots of decisions you've got to make within there. Connected with that, another thing that stands out you've got to figure out is when to draw Social Security. Odd to me that in the scenario, in the question, they say Social Security at 65 would be X. 65 is no longer connected to Social Security in any way. If you're looking to retire at 60, then I would assume they would have said at 62 Social Security would be this, or our full retirement age 67 would be this. But we don't have those numbers. So to me, you've got to figure out, how do you optimize Social Security? Delaying until 65 to me doesn't make any sense. You would either say, oh, we've got poor health, or our financial situation is such that we should draw at 62, that's unlikely, or we should delay until full retirement age or until age 70. And the reason why I would say that's probably more likely, depending on emotions, is you've got enough investment resources that you could afford to delay and have your Social Security grow 8% per year. You could figure out how much of your investments do you need to siphon off and set aside and have that be your bridge to Social Security so that your Social Security can grow 8% per year. And yes, there's risk to it. And yes, you've got to work on your individual, all of your concerns and hesitations, look at your overall financial plan. But how are you going to draw Social Security? That's a big thing that you've got to figure out here. And then finally, the final thing that from a planning standpoint really stands out, and he sort of asked this in this question, is I'd want to look at those pension calculations to see if you delayed retirement 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, how does it influence that calculation? And I don't know about your experience, but in many cases, it doesn't move it that much. I've seen some where delaying 2 years almost doubles your pension. We've seen others where it like makes an enormous difference. And so you're going to want to run those numbers before you make this decision, because even if you look, I've had a client where even though we looked and said, yeah, you can retire at 62, but if you work until 64, your pension's going to increase so much, I will drive you to work. I know you'd want to be done, but to double your pension for the rest of your life, can you just plug your nose and yes, I can retire, but I'm going to keep working for other reasons and get through a couple more years? I would hope so. You're going to want to know those numbers. Love this planning scenario. I assume it's very atypical. What's your scenario? How are you going to optimize Social Security? Do you have a pension? How will you make a wise decision for one of the biggest financial decisions you're going to make in your life? Do you want to retire at 60? Do you want to retire at 67? Do you want to retire at 70? What's your plan look like? You've got to look at those 5 factors in all 6 areas of your financial plan to have confidence in the approach that you take. Work with your certified financial planner on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team that's doing comprehensive financial planning, contact one on my team. You can find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.